Who needs sugar on that?
What is that?
That's grapefruit, man. If you don't have your health, what do you have?
You are a functional medicine doctor.
Join us as we blend modern and ancient wisdoms to be well now. That is good. That is good. And have you tried this?
Oh, what are you doing? You're eating the peel?
You have to eat the pith. I challenge anyone. If you eat an orange or eat a grapefruit, eat the pith. Eat the white part. Oh, so good. Now, it's gonna feed your bacteria in your gut, your microbiome. It's gonna feed the gut bacteria that you want, not the bacteria that you don't want.
Okay, today we're talking about bioenhancers.
Mm-hmm.
And we did 5 of them in a previous episode, so we'll link that down below. But you're Dr. Rod Dummar. I'm your curious patient, and you're a little different.
I guess I'm a little different. I'm eating a grapefruit. Is that different?
You're eating the peel of a grapefruit, and you're telling me this could help me, right? So I think deep down,
so
intuitively,
good for you.
We get that the stuff that comes from Mother Nature, from the earth, is probably the medicine that we need, among other things, right? This is your world. This is my take on it. But you're giving us 5 herbs, bioenhancers, things that come from the ground.
Yeah.
That can help us. That can help our health.
Things that grow naturally can be picked, plucked, sprouted, right? So these are bioenhancers ultimately that can improve your physiology, benefit the way your cells work, improve the exchange of nutrients, or even in some cases restrict the exchange of nutrients. There are different detoxification pathways. We mentioned these a little bit in the prior podcast, but I think seeing as we're doing this 1, 2, 3 step series, it's probably good to introduce everybody to these ideas. And so what these foods do, what these plants or herbals do, is they act on certain detox, you could call them autophagy or detoxification or elimination pathways. Certain medications, when you take them, if you have enzymes that are hyperactive, they will clear the medication out of the cell so quickly that people can develop a tolerance to it. Okay? And so the body's trying to clean the chemical, the drug, out of the body, and it can become very proficient at doing this. And certain herbals actually can influence how quick that rate occurs or how quickly that chemical is dispersed or the drug. So in certain instances, they can actually prevent the function or inhibit the function of that substance that clears the medication, which then allows it to be more effective or to have a more potent effect on the body, which means ultimately that if you're taking a medication and you use an herbal in conjunction, you don't have to take as much. You would likely not have to take as much medication to have a significant effect.
So you're trying to help people supplement naturally in a way that would benefit their medication usage, hypothetically.
Yeah, ultimately, a major goal of ours in general and a major goal of our patients, they come to me and they say, I don't want to be on medications. And some of them are on 12. Some of them are on 2. But their goal and objective is to limit their dependence on chemical medication. And some medications, they end up needing to be on. And that's just the way it is. And we create a strategy and a plan, and we say, okay, we're going to do the best that we can. And we work with care providers, the prescribing providers. If we're not the prescribing provider, we work in conjunction with prescribing providers as well to help reduce or minimize their dependence on some of these medications. And doctors are doing the same thing to some degree when they encourage you to exercise, right? They're saying, hey, you need to exercise. If they see your blood sugar is getting high, you should eat better food. You should eat less sugar. You should eat lower glycemic foods. And if they're recommending that you do those things, they're suggesting that you would need less medication or not need medication if you did those things.
So you're talking about grapefruit as the first one on our list today. What does it do? How does it help us?
So grapefruit actually inhibits the cytochrome P450 enzyme. These are enzymes, detoxification and elimination enzymes within the liver. And so it works on those enzymes to help slow that process or let's say mitigate or manage that process. Okay, and so it can actually make medications more potent, or allow you to not have to take as many medications if you're basically consuming grapefruit. Grapefruit also is known to have an impact on many medications. So there's a lot of medications that will likely say don't use grapefruit or don't consume grapefruit if you're taking the medication. So that may be something you want to consider or look at is, am I taking a medication that I shouldn't be consuming grapefruit, because it may impact your medication. And one of the compounds within grapefruit that makes it or allows it to perform this way are they're called coumarins. Sorry. They're called coumarins. And it's interesting because this substance allows it to be able to interact with the enzymes in the liver and mitigate or manage detoxification pathways. So what are the medications? We wanted to talk about the specific medications. I think everybody realizes grapefruit is it's a fruit. It's right here, right? We
tasty.
Ate some of it. It actually smells really good, tastes really good. Some people like to throw sugar on it, right?
I mentioned that to you earlier.
My ideal would be to eat it, just eat it, or squeeze it. You could juice it, right? I don't know. I think it's really good for our bodies to have a little bit of that bitter flavor as well. And a bitter in Chinese medicine tends to lend itself towards the idea of detoxification or elimination. So when we look at like an antibacterial or an antifungal type property, we're thinking a bitter. It's going to be a bitter taste usually. So a lot of like berberine right now is studied a lot as a glucose regulator and also as an anti-inflammatory, but also as an antibiotic. But if you've ever tasted berberine, it's super bitter. It's very, very bitter. And in Chinese medicine, they have these herbs they call the three yellows, which is Huangqing, Huanglian, and Huangbai. And those will address different bacterial and infections and viral infections or fungus infections as well throughout the body. Huangqing in the upper area, Huangbai in the lower, and Huanglian kind of in the liver and that area itself. So getting back to grapefruit, what are the medications that if you're taking them, it may interfere with? And that is felodipine. So felodipine is actually a calcium channel blocker. So it's used a lot to treat hypertension or high blood pressure. So if you have high blood pressure or hypertension and you find that you might be on felodipine and realize I'm going to give you kind of the generic name. There's a lot of brand specific names, which is felodipine, but may not be called felodipine. So again, it's a calcium channel blocker and it helps to treat hypertension or high blood pressure. The grapefruit will interfere with that. Also cyclosporin, we've mentioned that before in a previous podcast on this specific topic as well. It functions, cyclosporin is more of like an immunosuppressant, and it's used for like grafts or organ transfers, donations, and things like that. So we use cyclosporin to help the body suppress the immune response so it doesn't create a whole bunch of inflammatory chemicals in response to an organ transplant. So we want it to be able to accept and not reject the organ transplant. So if you're utilizing grapefruit, it actually could influence or help or assist that process.
Okay.
So that was a good one. That was fun, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about a more, a less well-known one. Some people might be familiar with it, but it's the resin of a tree, and people are often familiar with frankincense and myrrh as being resins that we use medicinally and that have been used anciently, obviously, for medicinal purposes and also for incense and a variety of different reasons. But this is called guggul. So guggul is a resin from the Commiphora, the muckle tree. And so it's a resin that they collect, and this resin actually inhibits also the same pathway as grapefruit. so the cytochrome P450 pathway. And the medications that Google would interfere with or have an impact on or allow you to be able to reduce the use of that medication would be a simvastatin, which is a cholesterol-lowering medication. It helps to treat specifically the LDLs. There's HDL and LDL, and I often hear people say, oh, there's a good and there's a bad. And just as a little caveat here while we're talking about cholesterol, I think it's important for people to realize that your body makes LDL and your body makes HDL, and they're both healing tissues. So it's not necessarily good and bad, but it maybe is a misnomer that has been given to people to understand that it's bad if it's too high. So if the balance is off between the high-density lipoprotein HDL and the low-density lipoprotein LDL, if the balance is off, then it's bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with, the LDL is bad, I'm creating bad cholesterol. It's not about whether you're creating bad cholesterol or not. It's whether or not the balance of what you are creating is appropriate or not. So that's an important thing to realize. And oftentimes when practitioners order labs, we always do this, but they'll order the ratio as well. They'll have the ratio listed. And you want that ratio between LDL and HDL, you want it to be less than 3. And if it's less than 3, 3 to 1, then you're in really good shape. So what that means is that you have a significant enough amount of the larger HDL protein versus the smaller LDL protein to fill in the gaps and to essentially create like a scab for the cardiovascular system. That's what the cholesterol does. It's a healing tissue for your cardiovascular system. So you could imagine if you have high cholesterol, one of my questions as a practitioner in my mind would be, well, what's affecting the cardiovascular system that's signaling the liver to produce more cholesterol? So rather than just jumping on the cholesterol lowering chain, which might reduce our ability to heal the cardiovascular system, we want to understand what is affecting the cardiovascular system that's making the liver feel like it has to produce more cholesterol or healing material. Okay, so there's your little nugget on Google. Okay, and next, the other one is an antihistamine. It's actually helped. We use the medication to relieve allergies, and a lot of people, especially now, allergy season is here. So a lot of people, itchy eyes, runny nose, and just feeling like they wake up in the morning and they almost feel hungover, right? So that's a seasonal allergy type of symptom. But the medication, the generic type of name for the medication, is fexofenadine. Okay, so if that, and you can research, and look on the labels as well and see what more of the base of the medication is that you're using. But if it's based on that, there's a chance that utilizing Google could benefit you. Now the question is,
Guggal supplement with that.
Yeah, the question is, where do I get this?
How much do I take?
Right.
Why have I never heard of it before?
Yeah. And
this guy crazy?
The answer,
just ate a peel of a grapefruit. Come on now.
I might be a little crazy. So the answer is
the right kind of crazy. I want my doctor crazy though. Like I want the person who is gonna help me with my health.
Yeah.
To be like way down the rabbit hole, right? Like that's.
I'm super crazy about plants. I'm super crazy about the compounds that make up this fruit and that make up this root and tuber.
What is this?
This is ginger.
Oh, ginger. We're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
That enable it to actually protect itself. I mean, you think about this, all of these little protective mechanisms, these compounds, these antioxidants, anthocyanidins that we talk about in these foods, these naturally occurring compounds, they protect the plant from invasion, pathogenic invasion, from foreign invasion, from animal invasion as much as they can. And we get to benefit from that intelligence that it created. So we're essentially borrowing you could say hardwiring, or for some understanding, you could say, well, the DNA of this plant. We're borrowing the DNA that taught this plant to survive and thrive in the world and the environment around it. Well, why wouldn't we want to borrow that intelligence? And that's what we're doing when we eat plants. Ultimately, is we're we're borrowing or downloading information from this plant to our body and going forward and utilizing that. Okay. So that's Google. I think we've said enough about that one, right? Let's talk about one that a lot of people are actually familiar with, licorice root. Licorice root has been used in Western medicine, Eastern medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, South American medicine. It's been used in traditional medicine. And so it's used all throughout the world. And it's kind of an herbal that we say, in Chinese medicine, we would say it kind of enters all 12 channels. They have these channels or meridians in Chinese medicine, and the flow of meridians go throughout the entire body, and it's like nerve pathways that have a control mechanism throughout the entire body. And licorice root can impact all of that, which is pretty impressive. But that's also why it's so commonly used. One of the areas that it benefits a lot, though, too, is GI. It's very beneficial in the gastrointestinal tract and in the intestines. It helps with nourishing and tissue regeneration in the gut and in the stomach. It'll help with acid regurg or acid-base imbalance, or if you have some sort of ulceration, you feel like you're having some burning in your stomach. Licorice root is going to help with that. It inhibits, once again, cytochrome P450 enzymes, so the enzymes within the liver that are detoxification enzymes. It inhibits and works in moderating the detoxification pathway so that it's not overly quick, and so that you actually get the benefit of the medication that you may be taking instead of just clearing it, constantly clearing it. So it's a sweet tasting root typically. Now, let me clarify sweet tasting root, because unless you have never tasted processed white cane sugar, this isn't sweet to you, right? Like if you've tasted white processed cane sugar, that's a sweet kick.
Right.
And sweet root, this licorice root is not going to taste sweet to you if that's the case. So
aspirin, and what are the medicines that it works on?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to eat licorice root.
Yeah, well, you should, Nick. You should.
Aren't I going to just supplement with it?
Yes, you're going to supplement.
Okay,
yes.
I was going to say, I've never seen it before.
Well, usually it's in a formula.
Okay.
Or it's in sometimes it'll be in actual sweets.
Okay.
Like you'll see it in little candies and things like that too. You'll have licorice root. But there's a variety of different herbals. So some of them are heart related. Some of them are inflammation related. So it's like immune sedative, and the others are like platelet as far as clotting factor related. Okay, so there's 3 different medications that we're looking at here, and you mentioned aspirin. So that's clotting factor. People will be placed on aspirin to help reduce the likelihood of forming a clot in their body, and so licorice root can inhibit the release or the clearance of aspirin, which it can make aspirin more potently effective in your body. Okay, which is, well, that's really nice so you don't have to take so much of it. And there are people who are of the generation of doctors that were telling individuals, almost all of them, to take an aspirin a day, to just take an aspirin a day, because it was known to be, for them, kind of a cure-all for the cardiovascular system and to prevent any sort of clots or inflammation and buildup. So licorice root can benefit the dosing in that case. Also, prednisolone, which is a corticosteroid. Corticosteroids are used really to reduce inflammation. They're used to reduce the pain as well that comes from inflammation. When you have swelling and inflammation in your joints or in a tissue, you experience pain ultimately. Sometimes you can have redness. You can have what we call rubor in response to that production of inflammation. So prednisolone is going to be made more effective in your body by the use of licorice root. Also, interesting thing is it will reduce the negative impact on the pancreas. So prednisolone is often, like corticosteroids, they're often seen to affect blood sugar. So your blood sugar will frequently spike or will start to have issues your body will have issues regulating blood sugar. when on corticosteroids. So you have to really be careful and watch that. But again, licorice root will help mitigate some of those nefarious effects. Okay. Lastly, digoxin. It's a medication that is utilized to treat heart failure. So congestive heart failure in large, they'll use digoxin. And again, licorice root. Licorice root is an herbal that has been utilized to help benefit or reduce the need of as much medication for the heart. Now, a caveat here when it comes to the heart, because using licorice root over a long period of time has also been, in high amounts, has also been shown to be somewhat bad for the heart. Okay, so it's not, you shouldn't get off this podcast today and say, I'm going to use licorice root because it goes all 12 channels and it works for everything. Licorice root can also be problematic. So what you can do is you can get deglycerized licorice. So glycyrrhizin is where some of these negative effects take place. And so if you look for deglycerized licorice, you're going to avoid a lot of the negative heart effects that we experience. Okay.
As opposed to Diet Coke, which is great for the heart.
Yeah, Diet Coke is fantastic for the heart.
I just think about all the bad decisions we make. I'm like, I wonder if a little licorice is really going to be the worst thing that people do.
Little licorice root. Yeah, if I see you chewing on a little licorice root,
I mean, I'm like listening to everything you're saying. I'm like, okay, you know what you're talking about. All right, on to the next.
So turmeric. Turmeric. This is one that a lot of people are very familiar with. It's really hot in the market right now.
So hot right now.
Yeah, it is. Like people love, I got to take my turmeric. It's my anti-inflammatory. I put it in my shake. I take a pill. There's lots of turmeric out there. Now, a caveat on this as well, and hopefully we're doing well for time. Oh, I got to hurry. A caveat here with turmeric is that turmeric is also cloying. So turmeric functions, think of it like a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medication or drug. When you take a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, it reduces the inflammation. So it reduces the inflammation, but it also prolongs the time it takes to heal. Well, turmeric can reduce the inflammation because it's not a stopgap measure, but it also promotes healing. So that's a really cool thing. That's one of the reasons turmeric is a big deal right now, is because a lot of people are finding that it'll reduce their aches and pains, but it also speeds their healing and their recovery when they have a difficult workout. So as opposed to using, ibuprofen or something like that, they're going to use turmeric and get better results. Now, the other thing is that, again, turmeric is also a little bit more cloying because it's the intention is to dry up the inflammation. So if you overuse turmeric, you can actually create a little dryness in the body or in the ligaments and in the tendons. So how do you prevent from getting to this? Well, you would add some black pepper to help with the absorption and digestion, and you'd help with maybe add a little bit of lemon. And I like to add a little bit of coconut milk. Okay, so coconut milk, even coconut water would work. So if you add that, and I would teach a lot of my patients to make a drink in the morning, and they'll have coconut milk, and they'll have turmeric and lemon and a little bit of black pepper, and it's actually a really nice drink.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, it actually is.
What kind
good.
of coconut milk?
The brand.
Because they have different kinds. They have sweetened. And
yeah, I'm not going to go for the sweetened condensed, and typically I'll use coconut water.
Okay.
Because I really like the electrolyte profile in the coconut water. It still gives it that coconutty type flavor, and then it also gives you that electrolyte profile that hydrates your cells. So I would use that coconut water.
So coconut water, turmeric, lemon.
Yeah. So turmeric is the root of the curcuma longa plant. Okay. So it's the root of it. We dig that up. We develop it into turmeric. We process it as far as like drying and turning it into a powder. It's frequently found in Indian foods. So traditional Indian cuisine, if you ever eat traditional Indian cuisine, chances are you're eating turmeric.
Yep.
Okay. And what does this work on? It works on a medication called docetaxel. Sorry. The medication bit of this is not my expertise. But I do understand the medications.
Well, you've read all about them, and I just don't feel like you prescribe any of these.
Yeah,
so you don't
I
say them
really
out loud.
don't, so I don't say them a lot. Docetaxel, okay? It's anti-neoplastic, which means it's anti-cancerogenic. So it helps, that's what this medication does. It helps to treat cancer. They use it in the treatment of cancer a lot. Well, turmeric actually improves the effectiveness of this medication. So as an herbal bioenhancer and as a practitioner, we should be thinking, wow, if I'm going to prescribe or if I have the need to prescribe this medication, perhaps I should also be considering the use of turmeric as I do so, because it may actually reduce the need of this medication for this patient to still get the beneficent effect of the medication and yet to have a side beneficial effect from the turmeric as well. So that's turmeric. And our last one, are we on the last one?
Last one.
Milk thistle.
Heard of it. Don't know what it is.
Milk thistle, probably most people have heard of this. This is a very common Western medicine herbal. It's used a lot for liver-related issues or conditions, especially liver excess conditions. Or when I say excess, we think of inflammation or of a infection, something like that. Or even for basic what people say detoxification. Okay, and really detoxification again is we're looking more at autophagy. How's the clearance, the self-clearance, the self-cleaning function of the body taking place? Milk thistle will enhance the liver's capacity to be able to do that. And milk thistle works by inhibiting, and this is a new one. I don't know if we said what turmeric. I don't think we did. So turmeric and milk thistle both inhibit the activity of P-glycoprotein. And we may have, I don't think we mentioned this at the beginning, but it's cytochrome P450, P-glycoprotein, and then UDP gluconeotransferase. Those are the main kind of enzymes that we're talking about, or proteins that we're talking about that work in the detoxification pathways that these herbals are functioning on or acting on, from what we know. And remember, there's hundreds of compounds within these plants and these fruits that are probably having side benefits everywhere in a variety of different places. So turmeric and milk thistle, they work on P-glycoprotein. This is actually a protein that is in the phospholipid bilayer. It kind of implants itself it resides in the phospholipid bilayer of the cell. And so it regulates, it's like a traffic director, who comes in, who goes out, and the speed at which they come in and go out. Well, that makes sense too when we're talking about the detoxification or elimination of medication. If you have the medication in the cell and you want it to be active, and the P-glycoprotein's like just clearing it out super fast, well, then it's likely that you're going to feel as though you've become used to, help me with the term, you've adapted to it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I that just left my mind right now. Yeah, no, but you've basically become used to the medication so that it has no effect or has very little effect on you.
Sure.
And I mentioned it earlier in this podcast, and I just don't remember it. So, but this herbal, milk thistle and turmeric, they work on the P-glycoprotein. So what they'll do is they'll regulate, okay, how quickly are we eliminating or transferring things in and out of the cell? And is it going to be more of a benefit for us to keep that medication in a little longer? And it seems to inhibit the function of P-glycoprotein somewhat. So if you take the medication, it'll get in, and then it'll be a longer duration before it gets out. Okay. So that's what their action is. That's what they do. Milk thistle is essentially a plant. It has like white veins on it. It's like a prickly type of leaf. And it works on two different medications that we know specifically. And these are like antiviral medications. This is also one of the functions of milk thistle is because its effect, again, we said with infections, it can work with viruses and reduce the impact of viruses, especially to the liver, but to the body itself. So indinavir, which is a antiretroviral compound, it will improve and the effect of that. It can magnify it. And also tamoxifen, which is, again, another anti-neoplastic. It's a cancer type medication. This is actually a selective estrogen receptor modulator, that medication, tamoxifen. So it is estrogen based. So milk thistle can help and be beneficial to estrogen type dominant situations or cancers as well. So that kind of sums up ultimately, I think, the 5 for today that we wanted to cover. We do have 5 more that we're going to talk about in part 3.
And there's no dosage you're recommending. This is a news for you. Start getting your brain working and then talk to your doctor, right?
Yes. For your dosages, I want you to find an herbalist or find a naturopath, find a chiropractor that's trained in internal medicine or in Chinese medicine. Find someone near you that is an expert in that field, as myself. And if you want to call me or text me or send us a question, we can help you with that also. But make sure that you're getting your information directly from a quality source, which is, I think, one of the reasons I don't want to just throw it out there. So.
Right. And then if they want to reach you online, how do they do that?
So you can find us at communityhealthandwellness.org or chwheber.com.
Good times.
That was good. Thank you. I'm going to eat some more grapefruit. How about you?
I'm going to watch you eat grapefruit.
We brought the ginger, but we didn't talk about it. But I think we talked about it in the last one. So if you want to learn about the ginger, you can go to our most recent podcast, the part 1.
In the description below.
Uh-huh.
Namaste.
Namaste, everybody.